Hello, listeners. Our guest today is Nithya, award winning media professional at Annex Business Media, which includes Food in Canada, one of the country's premier publications for the food and beverage processing industry. Nithya curates and delivers insightful coverage on topics ranging from food processing, innovation, and regulatory changes to market trends and supply chain dynamics. Thank you for being on the show today, Nithya.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to talk a little bit about myself, but largely about the industry and about Annex as well.
Well, perhaps we'll let you jump in to talk about yourself, your passion, and your journey into the food journalism space.
I describe myself as I've been a journalist for nearly 20 years now. And the way I describe myself to people is that I'm a career journalist or a generalist. Don't like using the term jack of all trades, master of none, because that's like you really try to learn as much as you can, whichever industry you're covering. So been a journalist for over 20 years now, and I've covered several industries over the course of my journalistic career. It's been as eclectic as higher education, luxury fashion, to the food processing industry now, construction as well previously. So it's been quite eclectic. And I've also had the opportunity to work in 3 different countries. So that's given me a perspective that's global. I have a better understanding of certain nuances, sensitivities, and there's been such a diverse experience that I truly enjoy.
Wow. What a cool background and the opportunity to dive into so many different industries. You mentioned luxury fashion, construction, of course, food. And what was your journey to move into the food space, the food category specifically?
Yeah, so basically I started working at Annex Business Media, which is one of Canada's leading B2B publication media companies in 2021 March. And then Food in Canada, as you all know, has been there for a long time. In fact, we're celebrating the 85th anniversary of the magazine right now.
Wow.
Yes, it's
Very
been there
cool.
for so long. And so March 2021, I joined, and in April, they acquired Food in Canada, and I became the editor of Food in Canada. And that's how I became, I'm associated with Food in Canada now. But it's been such a great opportunity because we all eat food. We all have our own likes and dislikes, and we all want food to be in a certain manner. Now I get the opportunity to go back and see how it's made, what are the challenges, the whole industry, what is it they struggle with, and to meet so many people as well. I just love that about my job.
Yeah, it is one of the smallest and biggest industries in Canada, if you will. Everyone seems to know everyone. I think that's what's great about this food processing industry. For our listeners who aren't aware, what would you like them to know about Annex Business Media?
Sure. So Annex Business Media is one of Canada's largest B2B media publication companies. It was established in 1997 and has grown over the years to currently own 60 plus publications in different industries, manufacturing, agriculture, aquaculture, and of course, food as well. Now, last spring, we became an employee management partnership. Now, what that means is that all employees share in the benefits of ownership, include profit sharing. This also means decision making is a very collaborative process. We are very lean, agile, and work is fun, and we love fostering meaningful connections. And that's what we love doing in Food in Canada as well. B2B media is often dismissed as promotional marketing or not taken seriously. But I think magazines like Food in Canada play a vital role. Where else will industry professionals learn about CFI's labeling changes or industry-wide recalls? I don't see media outlets like the Globe or CBC covering them. And it's not because they don't want to, it's too niche of an audience. But we're proud of representing small, medium-sized processors, for instance, and making sure they have all the information they need to succeed.
We do have a lot of listeners who are students or working professionals who want to shift into this food industry, Nithya. What can you share with them in terms of those wanting to get into the industry or, for that matter, wanting to get into journalism or specifically food journalism?
Absolutely. If anyone wants to get into the food industry, I would say go for it. Simply, the math says the math is the simple answer. I recently did some deep dive into data, and then I'm sure most of you know it. The food and beverage industry, processing industry, is actually the largest manufacturing industry in Canada with over $170 billion worth of sale. In fact, in 2024, it accounted for over 20% of total manufacturing sales. And this number is only growing. So if anybody wants to jump into the food and beverage industry, I would say go for it. I mean, it's challenging. It's hard. I mean, to break into CPG, into the retail sector is no joke. I mean, to get something listed is not easy, but if you have the passion, if you're convinced about your product, I would say go for it. There are lots of help and there's lots of challenges and it's so diverse and so vast. There are so many options within the industry itself for you to find a space for yourself. When it comes to food journalism though, it's a little complicated and I'm on the fence over here. Even though I've been a journalist for 20 years now and I've been editing Food in Canada for almost 5 years now. One of the things that really concerns me is the declining space for journalism. As we know, that industry is declining. On the other hand, we're also seeing this huge rise in influencer marketing. So there's the lines between journalism and PR is almost blurred these days. We all live on social media. And I feel that the lines between journalism and PR are blurring these days. If someone is interested in getting into food journalism, I would strongly advise them in finding your niche. Because the industry is so vast, you can specialize in anything, right? It can be agriculture. And even within agriculture, there are so many niche spaces within that and within that itself that you can specialize in. So find your niche, whether it's wine, whether it's cereals. I'm such an odd example, but that's what just comes up to my mind.
Great example.
Right now.
Yeah.
Find your niche, right? Find your niche and keep developing content that meets that audience's needs. And that's what I really love about my job because at one hand, I am covering the industry. I'm giving out information. That's what it's supposed to be. But I also feel that I'm in a position where one of my responsibilities, which I take very, very seriously, is am I giving the information that's going to make this profession's job easier and help them succeed? Is what I'm putting out going to help them do that? And it can be anything. So that's my benchmark literally when it comes to, whatever content or whatever work I do.
Amazing. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that your passion for journalism, for the food industry, it just comes through and it's incredible. And I think, that finding that niche piece, I think is so important. And, whether it's cereal or if it's going to be, other niche areas in the food industry or what it might be, I think going deep and having that deep passion for it, because if you have a passion for it, perhaps others do as well and uncovering that. I find journalism so fascinating. I think it's so incredible, and to be able to bring stories to life, to be able to get to the heart of issues or challenges or opportunities, I think it's such an interesting area. I'm so curious. What does your day to day look like? What does it look like to uncover a story, or to dive deep into specific topics that will be of interest to your listenership or to your readership? I guess your readers of Food in Canada. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's a lot of connections. It's a lot of calls. Boots on the ground. Literally, that's what it is. And these days, the internet and social media has made that a lot easier. You are able to get information even without literally being boots on the ground. I mean, you are able to pick up the phone and call. It's those connections, having a list of experts to go to on a regular basis, talking to them, finding out what's concerning, meeting people at trade show, and even otherwise, even other events, conferences, and just talking to them generally, figuring out what's happening, keeping a pulse and being in regular touch with other associations as well. I find that extremely useful for me to understand what's happening and what topics are beneficial. We all have writer's block, right? So we all get stuck sometime, and then somehow these connections really helps. They help us uncover and tell us how to, what needs to be done.
I'm very curious about the publication timeline. I know Food in Canada is digital. What does that look like in terms of, finding out those stories, those boots on the ground moments, and then publishing that story on the digital magazine? If you can share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Food in Canada we still have a physical publication.
Oh, okay.
We publish 9 times a year. And that's a 12-week process. So it's not exactly timely. But when I say timely, what I mean is that it's if President Trump says that he's going to impose 50% tariffs, God forbid he does something like that. But obviously, when that, by the time it comes to the news in the print, it's not timely in that sense. That space is perfect for long form articles to deep dive into issues that really matter to the industry in terms of technology, in terms of companies, what they're doing, product reformulation, ingredients, regulatory issues as well. So those are the things that's a 12-week cycle, Laura. For the digital, it's a lot simpler. I would say if anyone comes to me with a pitch and tells me that they want to write, then it's a 2-week cycle. Depending on the comfort as well, depending on their schedule, it's a 2-week turnover.
So interesting. So you mentioned people coming to you with a topic, perhaps maybe it's perhaps some research or maybe something's been discovered, or what does that look like when it comes to vetting that content and whether that would be fit for the digital publication?
So fact-based, right? The facts matter. You need to provide me with an article. If you're going to make a claim, then you need to justify it. It's as simple as that. I need stats and data to back it up. There was someone who sent me an article recently. I don't want to take names, but there was an article recently submitted. They made claims about lean manufacturing systems, and then they spoke about a case study that they'd done, not in Canada, but it was done somewhere outside, somewhere in Europe. But then if I have to present this as a valid argument to Food in Canada readers, then the readers need to know why. They need data, they need stats, rather than just a simple case study. So I heavily lean on that. If anybody's coming to me, this is what I tell them. And I also tell them to make it relevant to food and beverage processing professionals, because many of the pitches that I get, because we're in the food industry, some of the pitches that we get are consumer focused, right? It's like people talk to me about marketing campaigns, and I'm like, well, it's interesting for me to know what you're doing. It helps me understand the trends in the market and how you're using how your PR engine is working. But is that what my reader needs to know? I don't think so. So those are that's the vetting.
That's really helpful. Data is obviously very helpful to assess, like the case study, what's going on, but then also backing it up with numbers and valid call-outs as well. So thanks for that, because I'm sure as our listeners are listening to this, like, oh my gosh, I have an idea for an article. So it's helpful to understand your process, your expectations as well, because it's assessing the broader audience as well. So that's really great. Thinking about 2025, it's wild. We're rolling through this year. It's crazy. We're rounding it out. We're getting into 2026. What are some of those exciting initiatives that are coming up, whether tail end of this year, that's also upcoming for 2026 that you'd like to share more about or that you're excited about?
Yes, it's actually timely for you to ask me this question, because we kind of wrapping up 2025. Our fiscal calendar is November to October, so we're almost at the end of 2025, and we're into planning season for 2026. Food in Canada does webinars. We try to do multiple webinars. Like this year, we're doing 5. So next year we may have 5 or we may have 6. Largely, basically depending on the trends of what's happening. It's basically trend and topical. So that's something that I'm always excited about, because it helps me tap into speaker pools. And I always try and encourage and try to bring in new speakers, because I think there's a diversity of audience and opinions and views in the food industry, and I want to give them that space as well. So that's something that always happens. I'm always on the lookout for articles and topics. So if any of your listeners are interested in sending me something, feel free. Don't think twice. Just send me the pitch, and then I will help you, fine tune it, refine it for the audience, or I'll be very brutal and tell you, sorry, this is not for Food in Canada.
But you'll
Love
get
the
some
honesty.
great tips, right?
Yes,
You'll get great tips on how to
absolutely.
write an article. Yeah.
Yes, I can help with that. The skill I can help with, for sure.
Amazing.
And then, that's speakers, thought leadership. We do have opportunities for that, a lot of that.
So cool. You mentioned trends, especially in the industry, you being so close to the pulse and everything, immersed in the industry. What are some of those top trends that you're seeing that the industry needs to know about?
Off the top of my head, I would say this big shift that we're seeing or maybe I would say a big shift. It's a continued shift. We've seen that for a while now. The stress on functional foods, better for you products, that's taking a toll. I mean, we're seeing big companies that have traditionally leaned on processed foods, without those health, that doesn't necessarily have the health halo. Those companies are making brutal decisions, like Kraft, Heinz, demerging after within a decade of their merger, big merger. Kellogg split into three, and now we're still waiting for Kellanova and Mars to merge together. We don't know what's happening because it's all stuck in Europe right now. And Pepsi reckoning, right? A big reckoning for them as well. Their profits came down. And so they've gone on a buying spree. They bought Poppy. They've launched their own prebiotic soda. Now, of course, we don't know what's going to happen at that end. We don't really know how successful those companies, but there's a big reckoning for snack manufacturers. That's a big trend that I'm seeing. The stress on health, the stress on longevity. Consumers want products that would keep them healthy, live longer, smarter, healthier lives. And any products that don't fit into this is a struggle to bring to the market.
Do you get insights into global trends in general as well? Do you see that sort of the same sort of trends in longevity, in healthy aging across the world, not just in North America, but across the markets?
I would say, well, safely, I would say Europe, because that's a market that we tend to watch closely. It kind of mirrors what's happening. And in some sense, the consumer trends is kind of mirrors. We've seen that in Europe, it started way, way earlier than it started in North America, this whole trend for healthy, better for you products. Asia, I'm not so sure. I'm not so clued into the Asian market, so I don't know. But I also know that their food patterns are different, and the kind of diet itself is way different than what we have, right? They were exposed to far more enriched, diverse, healthier plates. I mean, so I think much of that's an issue over there as much as it is over here.
Thank you for sharing. Christine and
No
I are
worries.
quite interested in longevity and better for you, and of course, healthy aging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And designing in that space, designing products in that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we're reaching towards that end of our podcast where we ask a question from our previous guests. And our previous guest was Christopher Mariangeli. He's the director for the Center for Regulatory Research and Innovation at Protein Industries Canada. So he asked the question, what are the major headwinds that the food industry is currently facing?
Okay. Well, I don't want to use the T word, but it looks like we may have to talk about that. Elephant in the room, always, everywhere, right now. It's sparked so much uncertainty. There's so much uncertainty in the market right now. And companies are being forced to make certain brutal decisions, right? I mean, the country that you relied on so much, you've made your plans, but suddenly exporting to that country has become tough. Now, what do you do as a food and beverage manufacturer? What do you do? Your contracts are lined up. You're stuck, right, in some situation. But I also think this is a great opportunity. Like we're seeing so much movement happening towards breaking down interprovincial trade barriers. And I'm so glad to see that go happen. I just published an article in Food in Canada about how the wine industry needs to start selling direct to consumer. BC wines need to be selling directly to consumers in Ontario, and how that's been okay. All the provinces have said fine, but still it's going to happen only in May, not now. The industry wants it now. I mean, what's the point in setting it in May? What about these months, right? Where they really need that push, that leg up, because they don't have the market that was available to them. So that is the big thing. The tariffs is the biggest thing that's really, really concerning. It's an opportunity as well. I don't want people to think that it's not an opportunity. This is forcing companies to look at new markets in Europe, Asia, Mexico. Low-hanging fruits. Mexico is it's a country that's so close to us, and yet we've not been able to have such a strong direct export relationship with them. So this is an opportunity for us. There are lots of organizations that's there to help. And I would recommend that. That's the thing. It's a headwind, but it's an opportunity. Let's put it that way.
I love it. I mean, especially with Christmas and holidays coming around the corner, you would think shipping direct to consumer for the wine industry, that's like your biggest push. It should work now.
Exactly, right? I mean, there's one winery in BC that said, I don't care, we're doing it right now.
Good.
So I don't know how. I don't know how it's going to happen. What's going to happen when the wine reaches the border? But I don't know that. But they said, we're not going to wait till May 2026. We're going to push now because that's what the industry needs it.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's a long
Things
wait.
can change. Yeah, absolutely.
Canada's regulatory landscape moves at a snail's pace or a turtle's
It's
pace.
wild.
We have to move it further. I mean, that's those red tapes that needs to be brought down now to make things move faster. That needs to happen now.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
I get it. I mean, in the meat space where regulatory is essential and food safety is essential, I understand those interprovincial barriers, but wine,
No.
But thank you for talking about, the diversification that we need in our export strategy. I think it's something that a lot of companies are starting to think about, and I think a lot of industry and CPG brands are looking towards, are they export ready? Can they actually export? And what are the needs there? Because there's so much support to do that. And thank you for sharing about Mexico, because I am headed to Mexico City in October. It's for a trade show called Food Tech Summit and Expo in Mexico City. And as part of it, we're bookending a culinary tour to encourage innovation and celebrate culture in terms of the Mexican cuisine. And Mexico City itself is so full of gastronomic, I don't know. So we want to share that with Canadian innovators and bring that idea and culture and ancestral food into Canada, and how we can collaborate together, the Mexican-Canadian trade. I think it's so important and so timely.
It is so important. Yes. I mean, it's laughable. It's really sad. I mean, it's really sad that we don't have deeper relations with the country on the same continent.
So
this
close.
is an opportunity. That trip sounds amazing, Lara. I'm looking forward to the photos. I mean, I wish I could be there, but
we'll do a recap. We'll do a recap.
Yes,
we'll do a recap. Maybe I'll submit an article to Food in Canada recapping our culinary trip.
I think.
And some innovation that comes for food and processing professionals.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, so many seeds planted here. Well, over to you, Nithya. What would you what question would you like to leave for the next guest, not knowing who they are?
Okay, compared to Chris, my question is a real softball. Thanks, Christopher, by the way. And I hope I made some sense and I gave an answer that satisfies you. That's good enough for you. So my question to the person, and this is really personal. So it's like, I want to know, what is your deepest and most heartfelt desire? Let me put it that. Yeah, this can go anyways. This can go anyway. So I'm curious though. I want to know the response too.
Deepest and most heartfelt desire.
Yes, exactly.
That's a great question. We don't know where this is going to go, but we're excited.
Exactly. It can go anywhere, right? So let's see.
Absolutely. We'll definitely share the answer with you. It's so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this amazing, rich conversation. We're so grateful for your time and your insights and all that you contribute to the food industry. Definitely enjoyed this conversation. So thank you. We'll be putting the links to this episode, what we discussed in this episode for the listeners here. But thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Absolutely. And feel free to add my email ID so that if any of your listeners want to reach out to me directly, they can. We're very open and very collaborative at Food in Canada. So I love to hear from as many people as possible.
That would be great. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Laura and Christine.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. We love this conversation and can't wait to share our next guest. If you have a food innovator or founder that you'd like to recommend as a guest on our podcast, please reach out to us on LinkedIn or leave your recommendation in the comments section.
If you like what you're hearing, the best way to support us is to share our podcast with a friend and subscribe, and you'll never miss a beat. Until next time, food friends.